Okay guys, so today we are going to be continuing on with solving equations. And so yesterday we talked about solving equations when we're doing addition and subtraction. And today we're going to be talking about how to solve equations when we're using multiplication and division. So just like when we solved equations using addition and subtraction, we're going to use the same method. And so when we want to solve equations using multiplication and division, all we have to do is use the same exact method we did yesterday when we were using addition and subtraction. And so what we're going to do is we are going to just undo the operation. So that's that key idea that we want to keep in mind whenever we are trying to solve equations, is to undo whatever operation we see. So for instance, in example 1, it says x divided by 3 equals negative 6. So I want you guys to keep that in mind when you see this fraction x over 3. That also means division. So that's going to be a very big key point that we need to keep in mind, is whenever we see a fraction like this, that also means division. So that is saying x divided by 3 equals negative 6. So the operation that we're currently using is division, and so to undo that, to do the opposite, to undo that operation of division, we need to multiply. So we're going to multiply by 3 by both sides. So I'm going to say multiply by 3, and I'm going to use that little dot that I always do. Multiply 3 to both sides of the equation. So those 3 cancels out, so I'm left with x on this side. X equals negative 6 times 3, which is negative 18. That's our answer. And of course, if you went back in and plugged this, if you went in and substituted in negative 18 in this equation for x, if you were to plug in negative 18 for x, you would end up with negative 18 divided by 3. And what times 3 equals 18? Well, that's 6, and it's negative. So we got our answer. All right, let's try B. 18 equals negative 4y. This is another key thing that we need to remember that, we learned last year, and we've been talking about it for this semester too. Whenever a number is right next to a variable, that means to multiply. So 4y, that's saying negative 4 times y. So if our operation is multiplication, to undo that operation multiplication, we're going to have to divide. So we're going to have to divide by negative 4 on both sides. Divide by negative 4. So you would have 18 divided by negative 4 equals y. And if we divide that out, because that's obviously 18, 4 can't go into 18 wholly. So we're going to go ahead and divide this, and we know what division, the denominator always goes on the outside of the little division cave, and the numerator goes on the inside. So we have negative 4 divided by 18. 4 can go into 18 4 times, and so we're going to subtract 16, which equals 2. Since we have a remainder of 2, we're going to go and we're going to put a decimal point and add a 0. So we can bring down that 0. It's very important that whenever, and we learned this last unit when we were talking about integers, whenever you're dividing, if you add a 0, you have to put that decimal point, and then you need to bring the decimal point up on top of the division as well. So if I bring down the 0, I have 20, and we know that 4 can go into 20 5 times. And don't forget this negative sign. We have to bring the negative sign over too. So we're left with negative 4.5, so y equals negative 4.5. And again, if you want to pause this video and try plugging in negative 4.5 for y, you're going to end up getting positive 18 when you multiply. So you're welcome to pause and go ahead if you want to try that. So I hope that so far this is making a little bit of sense. You guys are feeling pretty confident to start. So we have 3 practice problems that you guys need to try on your own. And so what I want you guys to do is to keep in mind is, 1, what operation is currently being used, division or multiplication, and what do we need to do to undo the operation? And before I let you guys go, I want you guys to look at problem number 2 because I'm sure that this is going to have a couple questions. I want you guys to rewrite this problem out as -1 times A equals 24. Because that's basically, not basically, that is what this problem is saying. When you have negative A, you have -1A, which is just -1 times A. And so I'm highlighting that out for you guys so you can have a better idea of what you're going to do to undo the operation to solve for this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause so you guys can do a few of these on your own. All right, so let's go over number 1. So this says x divided by 5 equals -2. So obviously we're talking about division, and so to undo that division we need to multiply. So I'm going to multiply by 5 on both sides. So you're going to cancel out. So I'm just left with x equals -2 times 5, which is -10. And that is my answer. And of course, if I want to try plugging that back in just to show my work, I'd have -10 over 5. And of course, we know 5 goes into 10 2 times, and it's negative. So we got our answer. All right, let's try number 2, the one that might have been a little tricky for some of you. So we have -A equals 24, and I highlighted that out. I expanded it because I wanted you guys to truly understand, to be able to see the multiplication in case you didn't already see it in the -A. So it's really just saying -1 times A equals 24. And so obviously the operation is multiplication and we want to divide. So we're going to divide by -1 on both sides. So these are going to cancel out and we're going to be left with A equals, and 24 divided by -1 is -24. So our answer is A equals -24. All right, last one, 3 equals 1.5n. So again, we're using multiplication. So to undo that multiplication, we want to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 1.5. So divide by 1.5. So we have 3 divided by 1.5. So what we really want to think about is how many times, 3 divided by 1.5, how many times can 1.5 go into 3? How many times can 1.5 go into 3? And if you don't already know, it's 2. N equals 2. And you can stack that up just to check your work, but if we have 1.5 plus 1.5, 5 plus 5 is 10, carry the 1, 3 ones is 3, and bring down a decimal point. So just to show you, 1.5 goes into 3 twice, so our N equals 2. All right, let's move on to the second page. So now that we're hopefully feeling a little bit more comfortable with solving equations using multiplication or division, we're going to talk about how to solve equations when we are using reciprocals. Dividing by fractions. So remember, when you divide a fraction, you're really multiplying by the reciprocal of that fraction. And so for instance, in example 2, it's saying -4/5 x equals -8. -4/5 x equals 8. And so this is obviously multiplication, so we're going to want to divide by -4/5 on each side. And so those 4/5 are going to cancel out. And so what we're going to be left with here is x equals -8 divided by -4/5. And so again, when we are dividing by a fraction, what we're really doing is we're multiplying by the reciprocal. And so I'm going to first turn 8 into a fraction, which we all know is 8 over 1. We're going to multiply, and we're going to do the reciprocal 4/5, which is 5 over 4. Now, if you want to go ahead and multiply this and then simplify, you definitely can. That would just be 8 times 5, which is 40, and 4 times 1, which is 4, and then you can simplify that from there. I personally prefer to simplify beforehand. So I'm going to look across 8 and 4. They can both be factored out by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and negative 8 divided by positive 4 is negative 2. So now I can go ahead and multiply across. So I have negative 2 times negative 5. Negative 2 times negative 5 is 10. Over 1 times 1 is 1. And my answer is just 10. So x equals 10. All right, so I hope that is making a little bit of sense to you guys, or hopefully a lot of sense to you guys. If you're still confused, please come ask me a question that you guys might have. But I'm gonna pause this video so you guys can try doing what we just did, solving an equation using that reciprocal. So again, this is all multiplication, so we're going to be dividing by a fraction, and when you divide by a fraction, you are really multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this video, and actually I'm going to end the video here, and you guys are going to go play the next video where you will practice these 3 out, and then you can watch me work them out.